Ministry of Reconciliation through Social Innovation, lesson number 14. When you study the early churches in the first century, the four walls did not define the church. The church was not a place with a set time when people met on a weekly basis. But since then, we have become systematic and mechanical religious practitioners. We are inward focused instead of outward focused. We have become self-serving corporate churchianity instead of serving church, serving God and serving His people. So we are not being church. We are doing church stuff inside the four walls. So we must be in church in our communities, in our society. We must become missional church, missional educational institution, missional healthcare, missional, congregations in all aspects of our engagement. Wherever we are as individuals and collectively as a church, corporately. We must live out the kingdom values and principles in order to create long-term sustainable community that develops and engage disciples. So after hearing one of my lectures, someone came up to me and said, that sounds great in the city, but I live in the suburbs. And all this is not relevant, where I live. So actually, I share my humble opinion based on the Stephen and Justin Bazar. And they said, not only do the suburbs receive culture shaped by the city, they receive people shaped by the city. And thought they have relocated to suburbs, these individuals likely work in the city. So, they are fed a cultural diet delivered to their doorstep by the city. And so success in the suburb based on skills acquired in the cities. And their suburbs are shaped by their lives, people who are moving from the city. So the world around them, with ideologies acquired during their formative years in the city, continually influence the life in the suburb. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. So we cannot, separate between the city and the suburb life. We are all connected. The internet has been a connector of all people globally, whether you are living in the city, metropolitan, urban community, or you're living in a bucolic country, suburban. Internet has brought us all connected. So, and people are migrating, immigrating, and all over the world. So people are bringing their city life, their preference, their values, their worldview to the suburbs, and vice versa, in fact. So Christianity is something people have to smell and see and touch and feel and hear through our individual life and unified as a church. It's not just the information delivery. So if we don't demonstrate the love of God, but only proclaim the good news, it's not a complete picture. So what I have shared with you is relevant in a challenge, whether we are living in suburb or urban, in metropolitan or country. It doesn't make any difference. So I hope you begin to understand, why I am, revisiting and reframing the traditional, the perspective and engagement of our community versus age of conceptualization, the greater demand and the expectation from our communities. Timothy Keller shares 4 essential attributes of being a missional church. First, a missional church is evangelistic. Keller says evangelistic means that work of God's Spirit in the world to restore all creation and reconcile their broken relationships. This is why we embrace and engage in holistic ministries to reach our community, to demonstrate love of God, and to proclaim the good news of salvation. It's both word and deed. So evangelistic is both, tangible and intangible. We must provide relief to individual and community development and reform our society intentionally, provisionally, and sustainably. And number 2, second, missional church is incarnational, where Christians live geographically close to each other and create a thick and rich community among themselves, and then become deeply involved in the civic and corporate life of their neighborhood or city. So we must be involved and engaged with our communities and with our civic organizations to discover the needs of our society and begin to serve them in Christ's name. And only as a byproduct of this engagement, we as a church, we will have a greater membership, growth. Our church membership will be greatly benefited by. So there will be a, natural and organic church growth out of incarnational ministry. Jesus moved into our neighborhood. So incarnational ministry is inevitable in our engagement. Let me give you an example. While we are serving the homeless people in our community, we interact with our affluent community throughout, our demonstrated, passion, commitment to serve and make a difference, and the tangible desire to, making a difference in homeless situations in our community. And non-believers from our affluent community, begin to understand our intention and how we are adding values to that societal challenge. And then they show their appreciation, in fact, and desire to serve with us, with the church, to solve this homeless situation in our communities. So we have to first demonstrate our commitment. There are many sincere people in our communities simply looking for opportunities to serve. So we should create these opportunities for people to serve together in a collaboratively. So sometimes we think we are the only vegetarians in the whole world, but I guarantee you there are a lot more out there in our communities. So incarnational ministry is the beginning of our journey. And third, missional church is contextual. Timothy Keller said that we should be involved with deep reflection on culture and discovering creative ways of communication and church practice. In other words, church must be relevant to the postmodern culture and post-Christendom reality. When mingling with the people outside of the walls of the church, we also have to be sensitive of their complex environment. We have to know the people in our community. Remember, VUCA world, volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So everyone in our community are challenged with that. So we have to be aware of what's going on in our community politically, economically, ethnic boundary, and cultural, boundaries. And so we have to understand our community first. Then you can actually provide, more relevant ministry. So being contextualization or engagement is important. The last, number 5, the missional church is reciprocal and communal. The Keller says that missional church calls us to a careful reworking of both our theology and our practice. Theology is where we read and write and contemplate and understand God's will. And our practice, our ethics, is where we live in our belief. So first, in theology, sin cannot be seen as just an offense against the holy God, vertically. We must also look at it as a horizontal term. So sin as the violation of God's shalom in the world through selfishness, violence, injustice, and pride. So the ramifications of sin are both vertical and horizontal. It affects our relationship with our God, and it affects our relationship with God's people in our families and neighbors in our communities. So in addition, the missional church, we must listen. We must listen and learn what God is doing in our community. Then we need to get involved in our community. So each member of the church must be involved and interact with their community with the humble minds to listen and learn about their communities. We need to get to know our neighbors, pinpoint societal challenges, and get to know what our community struggling with spiritually, physically, mentally, and socially. So we can provide holistic engagement, holistic ministry who are in need. Jim Collins' hedgehog concept could be interpreted as internal analysis to measure strength, weakness, threats, and opportunities of an organization. This concept was shared by Chinese general Sun Tzu in The Art of War during the 5th century BC. His strategy can be summarized in 2 conceptual frameworks. Number 1, know your people. Number 2, know your enemy. Yeah, so let's say I am general and I'm taking, all of you to war, and I need to know your strength, your weakness, what sort of war tactics that we have experienced and weaponries we have and so forth. So we have to understand, who we are. So this is what we call internal analysis, knowing our passion, our competencies, our skill set, and our resources, both tangible and intangible. And then, we should have an inventory and the church membership database. So, which member has a specific, passion and the competencies, the skill set, and spiritual gifts, you see. And then we need to know our community, right? Your community is not your enemy. So, don't get wrong with that. So we have to study our community. It's called external analysis. So you have to study your community and know who lives in our community, the people and the culture, politics, and socioeconomic status, educational background. So you have to understand your community people, what kind of industry we have, what kind of challenges and failures and success and so forth. So I'm going to actually show you how to combine Jim Collins and Sun Tzu, both, core values, how we can actually emphasize the importance of leadership in organizational performance through business models and military tactics, and the importance of building, capabilities of organization through strategic internal and external analysis. So we might contextualize both concepts into a program cycle in order to enhance its performance evaluation. Why? Because our program, our ministry must be evaluated. When I travel, I usually stay at the Hampton Inn. And that's home away from home, all right? And as soon as I walk out of the hotel, I get an email from the organization and asking, how was your stay? How was your bed? How was your breakfast? How was your internet service? How was the kitchen and bathroom? I mean, you name it. They want to know how they can improve their quality of service. So we as faith-based community, we as a church, no different. We need to evaluate our ministry. So not just designing the ministry and implementing it, but we need to evaluate our impact. So I ask you humbly and sincerely, when was last time that you went out to your community and asking people, how is our ministry doing? How is our program, making a difference in our community? If we have not done that, if we are not focusing on evaluating effectiveness of our ministry, then we are not, really becoming I would say, high performance organization. So we need to enhance our performance through the evaluation. So number one, we have to assess, right? We have to have internal analysis and external analysis. So based on that finding, we need to set aside specific goals, next 5 years, what we'd like to accomplish. And based on that goals, you have to design your program, right? What programs you will design and how you will implement it, in each year. So it's 5 years of engagement. So each year you will set aside the landmark and then you will implement the pre-designed program. And then at the every year you should have a formative evaluation, and then at the end, the 5th year, you will have summative evaluation. So you can evaluate your progress, and you can evaluate the entire journey. And based on that learning, you will begin to develop next 5 years of engagement. If our Lord Jesus Christ is here, it's all right. We pack up and go home. That's it. But if he's not here at the end of the 5th year, our journey, we need to continue, right? We need to continually be faithful until Lord comes. So this is important. So the assessment is to identify high priority goals that will serve as a basis for new or revised programs. So based on the evaluation, we need to change the course of action. So then an entity could decide the means to achieving previously selected goals. So after implementing the program, we must conduct formative and summative evaluation to see whether we are making a difference. So formative evaluation, in fact, examines an ongoing program or project to decide if improvements are needed. So based on your landmark that you set aside, you will understand whether we are accomplishing that landmarks, the benchmarks that we have set aside, or we maybe need to adjust, because we are not doing what we said we will do. So we probably have to change the course of action so that we can accomplish that landmark, the benchmark that you have set aside. So each year we will do formative evaluation. And then summative evaluation is conducted at the end of the program, end of your project, at the end of the 5 years, 2-3 year cycle, right? So, because you have to demonstrate your credibility to your funders. People have actually given their self-sacrificial, support, the gift. So you need to be accountable to their, contribution. So you have to demonstrate tangibly how you are making a difference, how you have made a difference each year, how you made a difference in overall, engagement. So your funders, your corporate sponsors, and other decision makers, they need to know your overall effectiveness, your engagement, how you are continually developing your program in order to have success, at the end. So, in my humble opinion, Christianity is a journey, right? It's a progression. So when you are faithful with your journey, you will be successful at the end. So in order to decide whether to continue your program or expand the scope of a service, even discontinuing the program, evaluation, assessment is inevitable. So we have to commit it to that process. We need to intentionally engage in evaluation of our church ministry. And it is to build organizational capacity system, both internal system and external relationships. Internal system to investigate our mission, our leadership competencies, our volunteers' engagement, technology needs, and evaluating our progress. How is our infrastructure in ecosystem? Are we involving all sector, the whole community as part of our engagement? And in external relationships, as to investigate status of current and the potential funders, who are currently supporting our ministry, who are potential, sponsors out there that we have not been, able to connect with, and the possible partners and sponsors and constituents that we may be able to cultivate, as we demonstrate our credibility, as we go through this journey. Every time we accomplish this benchmark, the landmark that we have set aside, we can actually, demonstrate our credibility, and through that, we can actually cultivate greater, possibilities and new funders and partners and sponsors. So it is about having a significant impact within the context of the values and the beliefs, cherished by the people who support the organizational mission and purpose. So this is why organizational capacity building is a crucial component. And the organizational capacity building is viewed as in the context of organization's objectives and values. So are we adding values to our community? Are we adding values to our people's lives? And that's how you demonstrate your organizational capacity, you see. It is about creating organization that has the ability to make serious impact, the collective impact on its desired mission in our community. By and large, the church is struggling with the two sets of groups, the modernist and the postmodernist. Of course, I'm generalizing, so please, don't get me wrong. The modernists are from the industrial and technological era, okay? And they focused on cooperation and sees things in the black and white. They have very small margin of error and not much of a gray area. It's very black and white worldview. Compared to modernists, postmodernists are somewhat different. They practice from the age of conceptualization, and they are willing to see beyond the black and white, and they have a greater gray area. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, or one should be focused on and the other should be neglected. No, that's not what I'm saying. And I'm basically trying to define the differences. And we need to understand the differences, and then how do we embrace the differences and learn from each other and how to coexist, you see. So please, as you hear my presentation, do not think that I am denigrating the modernist thinking and engagement whatsoever compared to postmodernism. Okay, so the church, cannot just be ruled or managed by the modernist completely and ignore the postmodernist viewpoints and worldviews, and also vice versa. Yeah, because both need to coexist. We need to embrace both group to enhance the kingdom of God. It's not either or. So I am actually, personally, I am a modernist. Yeah, I am. I am very concrete and sequential thinker, and I make decisions based on charts and numbers and figures. In fact, if you can come and cry all you want, but you're not going to get dime out of my pocket. Just kidding. But my wife is different. My wife is very abstract and random. She is completely opposite of me. She is postmodernist. And, you come to my wife and more you cry, guess what? You will get more out of her. So, I'm not saying I'm right and she's wrong and she's right and I'm wrong and so forth. But, God created right and left brains, right? So God created both of us, right? So I believe that we as a church, we require both groups to work together. That's why God created Adam and Eve and mankind. So now, but we have sometimes no patience for people who are different from us. Yeah, especially outside of the church. We don't have patience to listen what they are saying. We don't have a patience to understand our people in our community. The world doesn't function in the same age. We have some community is agricultural, the age of agriculture, and the industrial age, and the globalization age, and an age of conceptualization. So some are living in the industrial technology age mindset, while others are living in the conceptual age mindset. So we are living in different, worldview. It is important to know your community and correctly identify their mindset in order to meet their needs in a relevant way. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, it's all about knowing people that you serve. So when I talk and listen to people in the community, I can actually speculate, whether they are coming from modernist, journey of life or postmodern journey of life. Yeah, it's simply just listening their choice of words, that they use. Yeah, I would like to challenge you sometime to listen to those words carefully when you talk with the people. So when we speak, modernist, and they tend to use different, list of a vocabulary compared to postmodernist, and vice versa. And so as we are connecting with the people, and make sure we speak the same language, because when we are not speaking their language, we may not able to communicate, right? I'm not just talking about the language of with the nationality or country of origin, but I'm talking about their worldview, their values. So let's examine a choice of words from the two ages, modernist and postmodern, and industrial and age of conceptualization, and see what sort of a mindset they are representing, and what are the societal expectation and behaviors and practice they both group are expecting. And it is very interesting to note the differences that we encounter. So I'm going to, based on this presentation, Jill Freeman Flexer, who actually studied this vocabulary how the modernist and postmodernist tend to use differently. So we're going to reflect more on their philosophy behind the worldview and their values behind their practice of this engagement. And we're going to focus on volunteer engagement. Okay, so let's look at this. So modernists who grew up educated in industrial age, they will like to use a vocabulary such as like management, recruitment, placement, supervision, recognition, retention, training. So all these are very industrial language, very modernist thinking worldview. However, postmodernists, who grew up in this age of a conceptual age, would like to use words like engagement. So management is now engagement. So we do not manage volunteers, we engage volunteers, you see? And cultivation and networking. So it is negotiation and agreement. So you're not supervising, you are supporting. You're not focusing on rewarding, but acknowledgement. It's not about retention, but sustainability. It's not about training, but it's about equipping and developing. I hope you see the differences between these two groups. Okay, so as a part of the lesson number 14, exercise 14, I want you to list the words in two columns, right? The modernist and the postmodernist. And then list the vocabulary often we use in the industrial age compared with a vocabulary that are often used in the age of conceptualization. And write down the differences in their attitude behind and the values that they are bring to the list. So, for instance, as I said, the modernists like to focus on volunteer management. How do you manage and control? And then postmodernists, age of conceptualization, don't manage me, engage me, involve me. You see? Yeah, so it's the different values. So the modernists like we want to train people, for XYZ engagement. And the postmodern society, the age of conceptualization, they are saying, don't train me, equip me, develop me, enlighten me, you see? You see the differences. So I want you to, have the list and see what sort of, attitudes and values that you can actually differentiate.